There was some pretty huge news in the hip hop world yesterday, and that is the fact that Jay-Z and Pusha T were both mentioned in the most recent release of Epstein Files. And this is causing a lot of uproar, a lot of backlash. And I do just want to say, I feel like people should caution themselves of just automatically assuming this means that Jay-Z and Pusha T were involved in any type of illicit behavior. Now, I'm also, I'll admit my bias up front. I'm a big Pusha T fan. I like Jay-Z. So I have that type of bias, but at the same time, if there was some good concrete evidence that they were involved in any type of sexual abuse or misbehavior, obviously I would 100% condemn it. But I just want people to understand and kind of take a step back here and look at the allegations and realize that, I know a lot of people are inclined to believe victims, believe accusers, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I do think we have to kind of acknowledge that false allegations do exist. And you kind of have to evaluate individual claims on an individual basis. And for both of these claims, especially the Jay-Z one, but also the Pusha T one, the evidence is just not really there to back these claims up. Again, I'm not saying that doesn't mean they're not true, but I'm saying we should be careful and kind of slow our ropes in terms of, I've seen people say, I'm deleting all the Jay-Z and Pusha T from my library, that type of stuff. I just think that, before acting in such a immediately accusatory way, let's kind of look through what is actually being accused here. So why Jay-Z's name appears in the documents. So he's mentioned in connection with a claim involving Harvey Weinstein dating back to 1996. It was made by a third-party accuser, meaning not by the victim themselves, but someone who I guess was claiming that one of their friends or acquaintances was abused by Jay-Z during this time. And we can see here that the claim was not proven, it was not litigated, it was not substantiated. Jay-Z has consistently denied any involvement, and there is no public evidence showing that Jay-Z even knew Harvey Weinstein in 1996. And I think that this is honestly the most important part because, there's a lot of legitimate abuse that goes unlitigated and unsubstantiated. I mean, I've seen it in my own life, frankly, where I've been present to witnessing abuse and I've seen those people take it, through the court system. But, it's very hard to prove this stuff in the court of law very often. It's definitely because we have the legal system that we do. Unfortunately, it's set up to protect people who, might be wrongly accused, but because it does that, it definitely biases it against victims to a large extent. So just because something is not litigated or substantiated in a court of law, it doesn't mean it's not true necessarily. But I think the really damning thing with this particular accusation is the idea that Jay-Z would be hanging out with Harvey Weinstein in 96 doesn't really line up. I mean, 96 is when Jay-Z dropped his debut album. So in 96, he was barely known outside of, the streets of New York. This was back when Jay-Z's still selling CDs on the street, when he's still involved in drug dealing. The fact that he would be hanging out with a famous Hollywood producer during this era doesn't make a lot of sense. And so, again, I obviously was not there. I don't know if this claim holds any weight or not. But I think this particular aspect here, the date range and the fact that it was accused to be with Harvey Weinstein, it doesn't particularly add up. And then with Pusha T's accusation, so this is a separate allegation also involving Harvey Weinstein, and this is from 2007 and raised by a different accuser. But for Pusha T, the claim has not been proven, no charges have been filed, no lawsuit has named Pusha T as a defendant, and no corroborating evidence has been made public. So for this Pusha T one, unlike the Jay-Z situation, the fact that Pusha T might be hanging with Harvey Weinstein in 2007, it's still kind of weird. I personally don't really see that, but it's more possible because, Clips at this point was already a popular rap group, but why he would be hanging out with Harvey Weinstein is beyond me. I'm not saying it's not true, but it does seem a little odd because, even when the Harvey Weinstein story was huge many years ago, Pusha T was never mentioned. There was a lot of names who were listed in connection to the Harvey Weinstein scandal, and Pusha T's name never came up then. Again, doesn't mean it's not true, but I'm just cautioning that the way that these allegations work is they're mostly anonymous tips, they're, interview notes, email correspondence, third-party statements, administrative records. So I feel like for a lot of people, they have this mentality where if you're named in the Epstein Files, it automatically implies guilt. And that's just not true, right? The Epstein Files are millions of documents, quite literally. And there's lots and lots of people named in them who are either allegations that are not really backed up by anything else, right? Like the fact that in millions of documents, there's only these one loose third-party accounts of Jay-Z and Pusha T. It's not as strong as some of the wealthy individuals who appear in the Epstein Files over and over again, like Donald Trump and Bill Clinton, for example, who there's much more damning evidence that they were actually involved in illicit behavior. And you might have Trump supporters or people who want to defend Trump and some of these other wealthy guys who say, well, they haven't been proven either. There's been no smoking gun. It's all just a lot of circumstantial evidence. But what I would say is if you're named in the Epstein Files dozens or hundreds of times, and you're actually named by first-party statements, first-party witnesses, if you've been publicly accused, publicly either sued or taken to court, or with these more public accusations, which is the case with Donald Trump, with Bill Clinton, that holds a lot more weight. I mean, Trump's name is in the Epstein Files an ungodly amount of times, and if you look at the specific evidence for Trump or Clinton, again, for example, it's much more of a damning accusation compared to these Jay-Z and Pusha T mentions, which again are each one-offs with no other circumstantial evidence to back it, and which are anonymous tips, third-party statements that, especially in the Jay-Z case, the timeline doesn't particularly add up. So I just want to caution people who are really running with these allegations and just automatically convicting Jay-Z and Pusha T in the court of public opinion. Again, if there's more evidence that comes out that really backs up these claims, I'm happy to call them out and to admit that although I'm a fan of their music, that they were involved in heinous actions. But I'm just saying for now, let's all take a step back. Even if it was Drake, like I'm not a big Drake fan, for example, but if Drake was accused in a similar way that, Jay-Z is here, I would say the same thing, even though I'm not a fan of his music. So I feel like we just need to take a step back and realize that although this is definitely terrible publicity, and it's definitely an interesting thing to examine, for now, I think that there's not enough strong evidence here to really convict Jay-Z and Pusha T in the court of public opinion.